and welcome to Key to You. We are continuing with our series of conversations where we speak to people who have taken it upon themselves that their life's course will be decided by what they do with their own inner self. And today, in that conversation, we have with us Ankita Singh. Welcome aboard, Ankita.
Thank you so much, Nidhi. So excited to speak with you today.
Thank you. Thank you for coming here. We met a few years ago when you were curious about NLP and you wanted to take that journey, and that is how our time started. And from that time, when I've seen you and noticed your progress or walked a certain distance with you, I've, from where you were at that time, wanting to get a lot of clarity of what was happening within, to now whenever I talk to you there are insights coming from your side which are experience based, so your life definitely has moved on ahead. But before we
Yes.
get into taking those insights from you, I'd like to hear from you how, who you are, a little background about your own self, that it's best when it comes from the person herself. So, what is it that made you start on this journey, and what do you do?
Okay, so I'm a corporate professional. I'm into tech research. I work as an industry analyst with an MNC. So apart from that, I'm a writer by heart, and walking this path of self growth, I'd say, comes naturally to me, and it is kind of a fuel that allows me to wake up every day with excitement. So I think that doing a few courses around NLP, life coaching, emotional intelligence, all of these things, learning all of these things, applying them, sharing the learnings with others, uh, that all of this has been in a way coming back to my authentic self and doing justice to who I am as a person. So yeah, so I've done this to sort of polish myself and become a better version of myself every day, each day, and it's an ongoing process, a never-ending journey, I'd say.
Truly, indeed. All right. So, when we specifically starting from the point when we met, and your intent at that time was to do NLP, what was your life like just around that time of just a little before you decided to do the course?
So when we had met, I think it was year 2018.
Yes.
Uh, yeah, so around that time, my life was a big soup, a lot of chaos. In terms of the fact that I was struggling to identify myself, what are my belief systems, core principles, and my boundaries with other people, um, my work relationships, my personal relationships, and most importantly, my relationship with myself. So I had, it was a journey that I undertook to be able to understand myself fully and to identify my capabilities, my strengths, and turn my weaknesses into strengths. So that was the idea that I had in mind. I didn't think that it was so possible at that time, to be honest. I walked in with a lot of fear at every point. M- but I think that despite fear, I've always had the courage to kind of challenge and walk with however many risks there could be. So at that point, I needed to first understand what is it that I'm made of, and then take my journey of, coming into my own self and having whatever it is that I intend for myself in life.
Nice. When you when you speak about the inner, identifying and meeting with your own self, and when you speak about the soup, Is it possible for you to share what that soup may look like in terms of your specific experience of that soup that you were in? What was life like? What was that soup like?
Uh, Soup was like, I would say that small things, life is made up of very small things, the choices that you make every day, right? So saying yes to things that you do not want to be saying yes to, being afraid to say no, people pleasing, having a lot of fear because there are voices in your head and that are not your own, a lot of conditioning, a lot of limitations. So all of those things, they seem to reflect themselves in whatever one does, and vice versa. So when we, make ourselves limitless in the head, the possibilities and the hope that one feels in everyday life also increases manyfold, right? Right. So I'd say that what it looked like was disturbed group of friends, I would say. I mean, like a feeling that my personal life is made up of people who I did not resonate with, but there was something amiss that I could not. And in retrospect, I can tell you that all of this was happening, but at that time, I had no idea what was happening. I could just feel that there was something wrong, and I'm not at the right place. Be it at work, be it in my personal life, among group of friends, people I'd meet. Uh, you know, Even my relationship with myself, I did not quite feel that where was that conflict coming from. And I think the biggest journey all of us take is towards peace, finding inner peace. And to achieve that, all of us have to reduce and minimize the conflict that is within, right? So and though that conflict can be only minimized when one knows the correct choices to make, the correct mindset to show up with. So that was, I would say that, that is how my life looked like at that time.
So that was that when you were in that space, wanting peace, wanting inner peace, yet a lot of conflicting external experiences clubbed with inner thoughts or inner voices, like you said, which are not our own. What was your first initial reaction or um, feeling or experience when you started to learn what was in store for you during the course of the 5 days that we were together?
My initial reaction was a lot of release.
Mm-hmm.
I felt lighter. I started to feel, I think I remember feeling a lot hungry and a lot lighter, and sleeping more peacefully. That is what happened to my body. And for the first time in many, many years, I had started to trust my body's intelligence. And I have continued to do that till now.
Very nice.
During those 5 days, I think I sensed a lot of camaraderie, that there are a lot of people like me. So there was this general feeling of being a misfit before, and that seemed to melt away. And it has stayed with me since then, and it sort of like confirmed that I was just among the wrong set of people. I'm not saying wrong or right in a way that is demeaning to the people who I call wrong, but we are either right for each other or wrong for each other, right? So
Interesting.
I'm just saying that vibrationally, I found
Mhm.
myself to be more aligned. And during those 5 days, I could feel that uh, so many limitations that I had uh, built up in my head, and they had become bigger than who I was. That those started to melt away, and I could claim my power back as a person. And of course, those 5 days were a start, and after that, one has to practice consciously till it becomes subconscious competence, as we say. Yeah. So since then, so many years have gone by. We are sitting in 2025, and it has been continuously a practice
How consciously, when you say practice, how consciously have you been practicing?
every day, every hour. So there are things that over a period of time, they start to take lesser energy when you work on them, you know. But there are things that require more energy. So it's
Mhm.
about continuous habit building and teaching yourself how to unlearn and relearn throughout the day. So, yeah, so every day, every hour.
So while there are certain things every day, every hour, you're consciously able to remember and apply and put into practice. Did something happen during that time for you that stayed with you or changed for you that you did not have to kind of work on consciously? Has that also been your experience?
Um, I think yeah, there have been things that I did not have to, I'd say that when we learn something new, there is a flip that happens in our mind, right? There is a certain spark that one might feel. So there are times when one has to come to that congruence of sorts, wherein one has to walk that distance to be able to adapt to that change, and those kind of changes need reminders, continuous reminders, and one has to work towards them. But there are certain changes that are very natural, and they just need you to be one needs to just be aware of those changes. And as soon as those changes come into awareness, uh, there's no going back. It's like you expand in size and then you can't ever go back to being who you were. So I think that I experienced both types of changes, and I experienced both types of moments during the time of my learning. And one of the things that uh, I think I learned was the circle of excellence. And, that I went on to share with a lot of people later on, my colleagues and my friends and all. So I think that was a moment of awareness for me, wherein I learned that if you can do something in one context, you very well can do the same thing in another context. And it's just how you retrain your mind to speak to yourself in a different way that it brings the best out of you, and you become your own ally, rather than standing in your own way. So that has helped me in my career a lot, because at that point in time I was very new to what I was doing.
That helped you in your career.
Yeah. So it helped me in my career a lot, because at that time I was very new to what I was doing, and I needed external validation quite often. But that circle of excellence and knowing that I had it all within me, it kind of anchored me from within to motivate myself and to keep motivated, and to have a certain discipline around it, to work towards something like that. So consistency came back, that consistency in actions were there, but I would say that consistency in beliefs is also very important to manifest something. Because if you're not believing in something for 23 hours a day, but you're working on it for 24 hours a day, it is likely to be unsuccessful. So that is something that I think worked for me wonderfully.
Very
But of
nicely.
course, there are other things I learned as well, which I still practice. they have become better on a scale of 1 to 10. I'm somewhere 6, 7, and I have to kind of walk the rest of the distance. No, I don't know for how long that'll be, but yeah.
Brilliant. Very nice. So what I hear you say more is that your committedness to your own self, when you say belief, is committedness to your own self. So believing that you can in a lot of areas started happening. I also remember how you took on to working on your health and
Yeah.
consistency as far as your awareness of your intake of food and how you managed that a lot of areas around your health. I'd like you to talk a little more about that. What led you to identifying with what works with your body, because every body is different.
Yes, yes, it is. Um, I'll also bring up integrity of being here. That uh, we are working on things, even if it is, say, in the context of health. We are believing something, we are saying something, we are doing something. And these three things have to combine. A lot of times we hear people tell us, you do this, do that. This is very good for your health. This is very good for your. But I'm not believing in it 100%. But I'm still doing it, and that kind of creates conflict in the body and in your system. So then integrity is lost, how you are living your everyday life. And that is definitely not good for mental health, emotional health, spiritual health. So, with respect to my journey towards achieving health as best as I can, I think I consider that there are a few buckets that we have to pour into every single day, you know, physical health, mental health, emotional health, spiritual health, financial health. So one has to kind of do maybe 1% or 0.5%, whatever one is capable of every single day to be able to feel, a compounding effect a few months down the line, a few years down the line. And when I started my journey in health, naturally I started with how everybody starts, listening to somebody else tell me what to do.
Mm.
But over a period of time, as I started to trust my body's intelligence and how I talk inside my brain with my own self, I began seeing the gaps.
Okay.
And I changed the vocabulary that I used when I was talking to myself. And I began to notice more mindfully how certain things are working for me and certain things are not working for me. And bit by bit, some hit and trial, some self learning. I did a few courses to understand, yeah, how modern nutrition would work and how Ayurvedic nutrition would work and what I best feel aligned to. And they may not be very different from each other because basics remain the same. But I think I'm more aligned to Ayurveda. And I've made necessary changes that are possible to sustain with the lifestyle that I have, being a corporate employee. So I think that um, I'd say that earlier I could I could say that being a certain within a certain weight bracket would be my idea of health, but now it's totally different. I feel that being as authentic as you can, being mindful, having less of brain fog, and general vitality in life is what I see health as. So I work every day towards that. Yeah.
What would the contribution of NLP be in your journey in health and self work through healthy body? therefore a healthy inner space.
Uh, NLP, like if it's neuro linguistics programming, right? So, what language you use, what meta models you use to perceive things, to perceive your own self, all of those things, they come in handy when one is trying to uh, redo the entire mental makeup. So, reimagining oneself,
Mhm.
visualizing oneself, and shifting personal narratives becomes very important. And NLP has helped me deal with all of that. Meta models, for instance, how you distort things, how you delete things when you're perceiving things around you, and in any context, even in health, it has helped me a lot to not delete my small achievements and distort my failures to, yeah, keep sitting with them for so long that they become a reality for me. And so one has to I think NLP really helped me to stop wounding myself in this journey. And because it's not easy, one is bound to fall, and there will be periods that will be low and how, so there'll be um, misses, and there will be a lot of tribulations, whatever, so it's important to understand what your mind is doing to you. So in even in the context of health, thinking healthily towards your own self and processing what is happening to you healthily is what NLP has helped me do.
Very nice. You said in the beginning that you were at the beginning of a very new um, kind of work,
Yeah,
corporate wise, that you started. How much has NLP helped you with your work?
a great deal. Because I had no background. Most of us say that whatever we study, we do not, leverage that so much in our jobs, and we have to learn on the job. Uh, but I'd say that the way my left brain and my right brain were contributing to what I was doing, it was very different. It was a different experience. It was like, using a certain part of my brain I had never used. Because for somebody to have studied creative arts and then do something which was creative could still have some influence. But for me, it was totally different because I was a literature student and I entered technology, and I had did not have a base. I had to like start from scratch. So during my journey, NLP really helped me because I could remind myself that I have the ingredients necessary to achieve this and to learn this and to keep getting better at it. Uh, so, and also to, it helped me to understand how I learn, you know, uh, what are the sensory stimulations that are required for me to learn better. So I could understand that shadow work works for me, in a corporate environment, or talking about things works for me, or maybe just merely seeing videos works for me. I could differentiate between my learning style, and over a period of time, I could crack the code.
Of your own self.
Yeah, of my own self.
We spoke about soup. We started with that soup that we are in, and a lot of times, a lot of us go through experiences which are difficult to deal with.
Mm.
Now, when we get onto a learning journey, it's not that the external environment will stop throwing things at us. Um, and surprises at us, which we suddenly have to gear up to be ready for, or to just take them on as and when they come to us. How has your learning and the application of the techniques of NLP helped you? You were in a soup when you came to learn, but then as life happened, what did you notice about yourself after having learned?
In terms of dealing with difficult situations.
Yes.
Uh, so, like how my personal narrative shifted and how I started to view myself in a um, I became a case study for my own self for the longest period of time. And that kind of also generated a lot of uh, understanding in terms of how I would view others. I was
Okay.
able to I was able to detach myself from the situation and see it from a vantage point, and I still do that. I earlier behavior and character would kind of combine for me to make an opinion of a person, and because I was not able to detach myself personally from that emotional, rigmarole of things at that time. But with training and practice, now I am able to detach and see the character of a person being different from behavior of a person in that moment. And I kind of the way I allow myself to recreate my identity, i I think I also have more space to hold for others, to allow them to recreate their identity. Having said that, I will not say that because somebody like me who wants to work on herself and wants to rise to a certain level and become the best version of herself or whatever. Um, Not everybody wants to do that, and this shouldn't be a way in wherein one is sitting and waiting for the other person to improve. Where I'm not saying that I look at people from that lens that they have to achieve something to be able to be in my good books or be my friends or be worthy of love. That is not the case. But I do see that there is more space that I can hold in terms of how people show up in my life. And I do not hold the baggage that otherwise it could come with. So, it in every situation, we can always look at it from NLP perspective that what is the situation, what is the impact it is generating on me, how can I change my narrative to change the impact it is generating on me. And I think our power lies there. It is not in changing the other person, it is not in sitting around and waiting for the other person to realize their mistake or circumstances to change, but it lies in the now and how I'm able to shift the impact of that situation on me.
Very nice. This part of you which said that there are a lot of tools and techniques, etc., which you've been consciously, unconsciously applying. NLP as we do it is in two parts. One we do at a introduction level where we become aware of what it contains, and then one is at a level which is a higher level where we become aware of more subtler practices of NLP. Do you think you really needed to go through that journey of the initial level 1 to level 2, and how did that work for you?
Yes, I think that it was very helpful for me. And everybody has a different working style and learning style. So, for me as a person, I like to formally learn things and keep exploring. I'm naturally curious like that. There are people who learn it with the help of books, and they read books and they start applying the techniques. And books come with a lot of examples, context. So one doesn't necessarily need to sit in a classroom and learn it step by step. I like to learn it step by step, and I think that it couldn't have worked for me in any other way, because structurally I'm like that. So I feel that it took me these many years to practice what I learned. And it is now that I took up another course, another learning, that to a formal way of learning. uh, and now I'll practice that for the next 1 year, and then come back to assimilate all of that I learned.
Hmm. When we did the level one to when you actually, when it was time for you to jump into the master level, the next level, COVID had arrived. And we had to shift gears from working in an offline space, live physical space workshops, to an online model. Did you think, was there any difference that you felt between the offline and the online as far as the learning was concerned? Or and what was your overall understanding of these two approaches? Because online is a way of life now. A lot of things have automatically come in this space of tech and technology. What was your experience, because you've experienced both?
Yeah. So I think that offline has its own charm, because you're kind of blocked, and blocked in a group, and you're creating a certain kind of vibration, energy in that space, and everybody is just present fully.
Right.
And like what happens when we go to temples, we feel suddenly very charged up, and there's a different type of energy. So online is definitely different, but there is no apples to apples comparison here. With online, you have more convenience, you have more space, because I remember that um, there were people who could even manage it along with their work, so like having those pockets of free time and doing it at that time, and also learning to shut off the distractions that otherwise may come up. So one is learning to, I think, how to practice, uh when you do a course, and after the course it is time for you to practice. So when you start practicing, there are a lot of distractions. How to stay focused in that? So I think with online sessions you get a small bit of a feeler as to how to stay focused within those type of distractions, and keep thinking straight, and keep learning how to go forward, taking that you know c- crafting that space within your daily schedule to work on yourself. So for a matter of convenience, I'd pick online. But otherwise, I think that offline has
Its own charm.
its own charm. Yeah.
When we come into a space of learning, and when we enroll ourselves into courses, obviously it means an exchange of money. It has a fee associated with it.
Hmm.
What is your opinion about the fee structure and the fees which are to be charged in courses like this? Because there is um, a lot of inhibition in people I see, or when I come across some thoughts, that when it comes to working with the self, everything seems expensive.
Yeah,
What do you think?
you're right. But I am not one of those people, luckily. Otherwise, that would have been another thing to work on. So I feel that. There is a price to pay. Either you pay to improve your life, or you keep paying every day and keep living the same life that you're living. And I see it from that perspective, that the most worthy money that I'll spend would be to improve my life quality.
Indeed.
And I'd rather not shop for the next 2 months and pay for something that helps me mentally. So, there are easy ways to kind of break the lump sum amount in, uh, easy installments as well. So, that is manageable. It's a way of seeing, you know, uh, how you see the value for money
Hmm.
coming to you.
Also, when we are looking at areas where we are improving ourselves, we don't have immediate tangibles. I mean, these are not the areas where we can count that, okay, I've spent this much, so this is the profit or net or etc. that I'm receiving as a result of that. So there are a lot of areas where when you work with your own self, you're presenting that improved version everywhere,
Yeah,
from your personal relations to your office space. That improved version is enabling that work, that area, that space, that relation also getting a different version of you. So you will not ever be able to understand how much in monetary terms the return has been. It's
yeah,
difficult to calculate that. So what actually one sees is only the price,
yeah,
but the
yeah,
output, the promotions as a result, or the work expanding as a result, or your inner calmness or inner space peace, like you're saying, you'll be spending it elsewhere if it's an exchange that has to happen inevitably.
yeah, yeah. And working on oneself and this journey is not linear. So if we totally attach ourselves to the outcome 2 months later or 2 weeks later, we are bound to feel miserable. Yeah. So it is like going to the gym. Over a period of time, you have to keep going. And 1 year later, you'll feel the changes. Or, maybe 10 years later, you will feel how great it was to take that one step today. So, because, there'll be a different diagnosis, or there'll be, something that you learn from your doctor or whatever. So these things, they can't be measured in terms of what the other person is telling you and what you're paying for it, but they can be measured in terms of how much practice you're doing and how much investment you have done after you have done the course. That is more important.
Investment of time and self.
Investment, yes.
I remember, well, now when you were saying it, that it's not linear and it cannot uh, be looked at a week, 10 days, 2 months, 3 months down the line. Here we are talking after 7 years.
Yeah,
And that event that happened 7 years back has given you a perspective or pointers to look back on, connecting the dots from this time to that original start point. Does
yeah.
that soup look different?
Yes, of course. It looks different and it is less. Because the soup, when we see it from that perspective, it is mostly in one's head, and how you're showing up in your life. So naturally, with a period of time, when you start to think differently, build narratives differently, and process situations differently, meet people differently in your life, in the sense not meeting, but when you show up differently in relationships, equations, work situations, You're also meeting your dynamics with that particular situation, and how you show up as a person has changed.
Mm.
So that makes mm, it lesser, I guess. The soup is less because you're mentally clear, and you basically have the tools to deal with the soup.
So if somebody is testing waters and is wanting to come on this side of self work, from knowing about it to actually finding the courage to get into it, what would a person like you who's been in it say to that person who is at the start of it?
I'd say have a lot of patience and kindness for your own self, and allow yourself the gift of your own time and effort. We've got one life, and we must make the most of it.
Very nice. Beautiful. Do you think a science like NLP will help a person take that decision to a logical, nicer conclusion of their initial decision and their situation?
I think having a conversation about it with the person one is going to get coaching from or learning from, the trainer, is important, because sometimes there is so much on social media. We are learning constantly. People are giving opinions. Everybody is trying to be a therapist, coach. Uh, One may not necessarily know the structure of expectations, the realness and unrealness of expectations, and the time frame required to go through that journey. And so it's important to talk to the trainer and also talk to the people who have already gone through that journey or in that journey. So that alignment of realistic expectations, knowing where one is already at, and what is it that one is expecting out of that, say 3 months later, 6 months later, 1 year later. It may or may not happen depending on how much one practices,
Right.
but having a clearer understanding and a structured mapping of goals is important. Otherwise, one may enter into it thinking that everybody is talking about it. Instagram is full of this type of advice. But when one comes out of it after having paid more than what one may be comfortable with, or
Mm.
whatever maybe the thoughts around the payment, um, one may come out of it thinking that I didn't get the value for money, or have unrealistic expectations, because as human beings we have this tendency to attach ourselves to successful outcomes. The value for money is only coming when the outcome is successful, and the rightness of decision only comes if the outcome is successful, and successful outcome has to only be one way, and that's not the truth. When we are taking a decision, it is a decision. The rightness or wrongness of it does not stand 6 months later. It stands at the time when you made that decision. So having a bit of realistic understanding is important.
Very nice. Did you, when we spoke initially, get the right realistic understanding of what you were getting into?
Um, 50-50. I had some bit of an idea that I will improve on these aspects, and I did find the immediate benefit and understanding of it. For the rest of the 50, I did not know that the possibility of learning NLP and applying NLP could be so vast. So because I didn't know that it would be so vast, naturally I had no means to imagine what the outcome could be for me. And even after so many years, I still feel that there are so many things that I need to go back to and bring in my awareness once again. So it is no end to it.
So it is important to go back to that space, learning board, coming back again and relearning that. I totally believe that myself also, because mine was the same experience. I had to continue to go back to it, because also what is happening is that while you are learning, certain things are happening. So the immediateness of what gets applied is what is the top of the mind kind of thing to be addressed at that moment. Once that gets addressed, I've revisited the learning space so many times myself that each time people wonder what is the reason that you being trainers come back into the space of learning. What I say is that each time the group energy is different and I get a different take on the same thought or concept differently
Absolutely.
next time. So it is very vast, because it's not a concept. It's about us. And
Yes.
we are limitless, but because we are limitless, we will need to come back to the conceptual understanding in a different context every time. So I
Yes,
totally
absolutely.
agree with the fact that you cannot learn something just once.
Yeah.
It has to be repeated a few number of times, as a result of which and post which the real thing starts to sink in.
Trust and surrender are also important. They play a very big role in this journey. One has to trust the trainer, one has to trust the teacher, be willing to learn, willing to accept, and one has to trust oneself also,
Indeed.
surrender to one's own path.
Very nice. Very nice.
Because
Very beautiful
outcome,
insights.
yeah, because outcome will be different for different people.
Truly.
Yeah.
Truly. Um, do you think this is something which even younger students can uh, find themselves, or find very useful for themselves, if it were to be taught at a younger age? We have voluntarily ventured into it when we realized we needed work. But a younger, say, in their teens, or maybe around that time, if certain concepts of this were to be introduced, would they help them better?
Yes, absolutely.
In
Absolutely.
in what way?
So I think that when one is young, it is easier to adapt. It is easier to assimilate a lot of changes, and one doesn't have a lot of agency when one is young. You're mostly listening to what your parents are saying, what your teachers are saying. So then after school, after college, there is a journey that one undertakes to kind of start listening to oneself. And it would be great if that journey starts even before, having the right tools. And now we see that a lot of people are, young people are feeling depressed. There are a lot of mental health issues, even in older people, but in younger people as well, because of the kind of world that we live in, overexposure, overconsumption, all of that. So mm, understanding one's own self, how to receive information, how to structure it in one's own head, and how to form narratives, all of those things are very important to become empowered human beings and start the journey early. And also,
That's
um, you know NLP also teaches you how to seek learning
Mm.
in a better way, how to um, become better learners. And that is a very important skill for everybody.
very well said. The earlier we start, the more efficient we are going to be in terms of how we evolve through this journey called life.
Yeah, yeah.
Very nice. So, on that note, Ankita, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us. And I wish you all the best in your journey, also as a coach, and your creative writing and whatever work you are doing with your own self. Just keep evolving. I know personally what all you are doing. So it's actually an honor for me to be talking to you and hearing you speak about your own journey. So thank you very much for coming and sharing space with me here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The honor is mutual, I'd say, and it's lovely that I met you at the right time in my life when I needed somebody like you to get me started on this path. Thank you so much for
Very
this
nice.
conversation and for everything else.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you very much to everybody who has been listening in intently to the thoughts that are shared so deep from the heart. And this is really not the Ankita that I met the first time when I met her. She would be giggling most of the time and speaking less. The kind of poise that I hear her speak and speak seriously, truly from the heart is not that the speaking from the heart was missing earlier, but she's today the version which is talking to me is something which is really moved on in life and like and that's the space that she's left far behind. So thank you very much, and continue to pour into this channel of ours for more information. There will be more conversations. If you like this conversation, please remember to share it with somebody you know who is actually waiting to hear these words. Thank you very much for listening in, and stay tuned. Thank you.